Good morning. Jim Ripley wrote a history of the church, and I'm using parts of it today. 130 years ago, the Methodist Church outreach in Arizona Territory was struggling. The long-continued drought, the closing of the silver mines, the low price of wool compelled many of our people to seek livelihood in other, more favorable locales. Wrote the Reverend Boulevard, is this on? Yes. Oh, thank you. The Territory's district superintendent. Church membership and worship attendance was taking a hit, the superintendent said in his report to the Missionary Society. But as 1893 was coming to an end, Boulevard urged the society not to give up on Arizona. The Territory was receiving an abundance of rain, which gave renewed confidence in the parts of our new life in every enterprise calculated to develop the untold resources of this vast empire. God has not forsaken Arizona, the superintendent declared. In this difficult year, a new Methodist church was taking shape in a central Arizona settlement of about 700 people. That settlement was Mesa. There is only a small reference of Mesa in the report of the Mission Society in that year of 1893. The report carries the notion that Fred Shelton had been appointed pastor to the Methodist congregations in Tempe and Mesa. Our first United Methodist Church of Mesa traces its roots to these very beginnings. The seed for today's church was planted in 1892 when Dr. E.W. Wilbur initiated Sunday school meetings and held them in his barn close to where Main Street and Stapley Road intersect today. Out of those Sunday school meetings, what would become the first Methodist Episcopal Church of Mesa was organized in 1893 with 9 adults and 6 children, and they were recognized by the National Methodist Episcopal Church with Reverend Shelton appointment. In that year, Wilbur, a medical doctor and a real estate developer, took ownership of 2 parcels of land bounded on the north by First Avenue. First Church's first church would soon be built on that land. The north boundary of those 2 lots is where the columbarium stands today. It did not include the corner lot where the current church stands. The deed of those 2 parcels was $300. The congregation was about to move from the barn at Stapley and Main to the heart of Mesa. In the Missionary Society report for 1894, Mesa and Tempe churches warranted an entire paragraph. The report noted the appointment of Reverend Shelton, and the conference said, "The year's work had been one of marked success. The membership has largely increased. Assessment for benevolence met in full. Some improvements made on the church in Tempe, and a very neat brick chapel built at Mesa, which would be ready for dedication within a few weeks." That very neat brick Methodist chapel, built in the heart of Mesa, with the help of $250 from the board of the Methodist Church, was perhaps the first standalone church structure built in Mesa. You will see the certificates of these 2 ladies. They're the certificates. They're the certificates of Mildred Dobson Fitch and Florence Knox Minton. These 2 ladies, as infants, were baptized in the original church, and members of their family are still members of our church today. The First Baptist Church of Mesa was built west of our church on the other side of the street, First Avenue and McDonald, but that was in 1895. And the first Mormon tabernacle in Mesa was built in 1986, and that was also on First Avenue and Morris Street. Prior to that, the Mormons who founded Mesa had used schools or stores for their meetings. To accommodate the church's growth, a second, larger church, Spanish colonial style, was built in 1913, in just 3 months, and on the site of the old 1893 church. Members hauled sand and gravel from the Salt River for concrete for that second church, and the Lehigh bricks from the first church were also used. Cost to build that 1913 church was $8,835. And then in 1944, they did some renovations for $8,000. The First Methodist Episcopal Church of Mesa also helped to establish a Spanish-speaking Methodist church in the 1920s and a Japanese Methodist church in 1933. One of the more interesting aspects of the campus after World War II were the barracks from the Japanese American Internment Center near Casa Grande, and they were brought in to serve as Sunday school classrooms. Then in 1945, the church changed its name to the First Methodist Church of Mesa, dropping Episcopal in its name. In the 1913 church had served God and the needs of the congregation until after World War II, when America began migrating to the Southwest and Mesa in large numbers. With fewer than 800 residents in 1900, the census for 1950 showed Mesa over 17,000. A fundraising campaign to build our current church was started in 1949. The current property was purchased for $56,000, and it was provided by a memorial gift from the John Dobson family. The 120-foot tower, an iconic feature of downtown Mesa, it was the first part of the new church to be built. The congregation began using this sanctuary in 1954, though it was not dedicated until 1955 and the debt was retired. The 1913 church then became the home and our neighbors of the Tongan congregation for many, many years. We were entertained with the beautiful music of their fantastic choir every Sunday afternoon. Cassandra remembers the pig roast, potlucks, and volleyball games with the Tongan youth. Lynette still has a bracelet from Susie Tamalulu, taught her how to weave Tongan style. Today's first church was designed by the first Mesa architect, Martin Ray Young, Jr. He was a descendant of the Mormon Brigham Young. The final phase of the church project, where today's Sunday school classes are held, and Earl North Hall was begun in 1959, completed in 1960 at a cost of $1 million. It was Mother's Day, May 12th, 1974, when members of the First Methodist Church viewed with horror the destruction of the sanctuary by fire. The people gathered in Earl North Hall to hear their pastor, Reverend Hayden Sears, deliver an inspiring sermon on the perishable quality of material things. Meetings, classes, and activities continued to an attendance that was the largest in the history of the church. The construction was completed in 2.5 months. Insurance covered the largest part of the construction, but without even a special appeal, the congregation met the rest. Winter visitors and people of the community also sent money. There was not a single cancellation of any meeting or program. The fire was set by a young man who was angry at God because of the deaths of several members of his family. The church did not press charges. The church's next major project was the installation of our centennial organ in 1993, so named because it was dedicated in the church's 100th anniversary year. The organ cost $440,000, and that included the remodeling to allow for the installation. Cecil LaCour was our first church senior pastor when that organ was dedicated. The organ is just one element in a music ministry that has long blessed First Methodist Church of Mesa. The columbarium with the memorial garden was dedicated in 2001 in memory of Charles and Florence Minton. The columbarium became the resting place, not only of church members, but also for all that was left of the 1913 church, its magnificent bell tower. The bell tower was removed after the church was decommissioned in 1999. The Mildred Fitch Family Life Center was dedicated in February of 2004. The 37,000 square foot building consists of a gym, striped for high school basketball, and 3 volleyball courts. The gym is surrounded on 2 sides on the first floor with locker rooms, dining rooms, classrooms, and choir practice rooms, as well as an entrance for offices. And it has room for expansion on the 2nd floor. In 2014, the city of Mesa recognized First Methodist Church of Mesa as a historic landmark, and we want to thank Jim Ripley and his committee for that recognition. In announcing the decision, the city press released this about First Church. In existence since the late 1800s, the church campus is one of the oldest in continuous use in Mesa. The steeple has been a presence on the downtown skylight since the 1950s. And our history continues with you.